Hi, I'm Rita Peterson with Everything Homemade, and I'm going to do a video on pain control during childbirth and my birth stories. And why am I doing it together? And the reason is because as I do my birth stories, I learn more about pain control every time I give birth. So it's kind of a combination. As I talk about the birth of a child, there's new things that I learned, or there's something different that I did. So I'm going to do a combination. Now, as you can see here, I am now 26 weeks pregnant as of today. So I have 15 to 14 weeks or less that I'm going to give birth. So this is a good time to get myself mentally prepared for the pain of childbirth. So without further ado, let's get into it. So let's start with the birth of Orion. He is my firstborn, and I started how everyone else starts, knowing absolutely nothing about childbirth. So I was going down a path that I have never been down, and there's a lot of fear in that. And I understand, especially first-time moms, first time giving birth, it is absolutely scary, and I'm not going to deny it because I was completely scared. So with Orion, I did going to see the doctor, going through all the appointments, blood work, ultrasound, yada yada yada. In halfway through that pregnancy, I did do a pretty good move. We moved from the Calgary area, which is southern Alberta, 8 hours all the way to Grant Prairie. So we did do this huge move when I was about 5 months pregnant. I also switched doctors in between that because obviously I moved to a different city. So that was a bit stressful. But other than that, the pregnancy was going just as normal. And I didn't really have anything to mentally prepare myself besides hearing everybody's stories. And what I have learned is when you're pregnant, you listen to other people's birth stories, but fill yourself around with positive people and not listen to all the horror stories. There is always the negative and people with horrible stories about their births that freaks you out. The worst thing I think that a person can do is go onto YouTube, go onto Facebook, whatever social media outlet, and basically watch awful birthing videos that will scare you, because it is not like that all the time. And what happens is then it plays in your mind. You get scared and fear sets in, and fear is the worst thing that you want to set in when giving birth, because it stalls everything when you're trying to give birth if you're not relaxed. So listen to the people around you. Don't fill yourself up with the negative. Listen to the people that are going to lift you up, give you positive, give you the truth, and help you get prepared in a positive way for childbirth, okay? And I want to make that really, really clear, because I have some people that go onto YouTube and watch the scariest videos with childbirth, and let me tell you, it does not help, and it does not prepare you for what is coming. It just makes it worse, and it makes you want to never, ever give birth to a child, okay? So let's start with Orion. Now, being a first-time mom, I could say that Orion's birth was the worst of all 5 of my births. And it comes down to me not knowing enough. Comes down to me not able to decipher between what the medical doctors wanted to tell me and what I knew in my heart as a mother, and my gut feeling was telling me. I put all the trust into the doctor and didn't know the balance between the two. And I don't ever regret anything about the birth, but I used it as a learning tool for the rest of my births. So what happened? Okay. Well, I went into early labor, and I went into the hospital too early. Now, as a first time going into labor, it's really hard to tell, okay, is this too early? Is it not too early? All these kind of things, because you don't know what your body is doing. I mean, it's so unknown to you. And so I went into the hospital. I labored there. We walked around, because if you walk around, you can stimulate contractions better. And nothing was happening. It was hour after hour. Nothing was really happening. So they wanted to do a baby stress test. So baby stress test is basically they hook you up to a machine. They put some stuff on your belly, and you're supposed to click this little clicker that basically every time the baby moves, you click, and it does it records it. I'm not too sure the technical name for the machine, but anyway, it records the baby movements. And what happened was that the baby wasn't moving as fast or as much as the doctors liked. Now, you can't lump women all into the same package, because some babies are more active than others. Some babies are quieter. Now, Orion was always a quiet baby. I mean, he didn't kick constantly. He kicked, quiet, maybe I should kick. Like, he wasn't a really crazy baby in the womb. And so I didn't know any better. So the doctors kind of scared me, because they were like, well, the baby's not moving that great, and we should just break your water and start inducing you that way. So without me knowing much about it, you kind of put your trust more in the doctors, because, hey, they are supposed to know. And so they broke my water, which brought on labor, obviously, but only for about 3 hours, and then it died. The contractions kind of went away. The whole labor just kind of stalled, and I wasn't dilating. So in those 3 and some hours, from the breaking my water to when they kind of stopped, nothing, I never even dilated. And so they were really concerned about that now. Now, because I started intervention, and now I'm kind of in a scenario going, great, okay, now I'm in the hands of the doctor. I'm on their clock. If they think it's not going fast enough and they want to hurry things up, what do I do? And so basically the next step then is synthetic oxytocin. So synthetic oxytocin mimics the hormone that gets the contractions going. And so it's intravenous, and they give it to you, and it's supposed to kickstart the contractions and get them going. So new mom, okay, we did it. They put the IV in, and it definitely kickstarted the contraction. But what we didn't know before they put in the oxytocin is that I am actually allergic to it. So in a good case, it would have just kick-started contractions, got it going, have the baby X amount of hours later. In this case, it kick-started contraction that never ended, because my body completely reacted to it. So basically they have this machine, and it calculates the contraction. It's kind of like a mountain, so it kind of goes like this, and then when you have a contraction, it goes up to its peak, and then when you're done your climax of your contraction, it goes down. Then 3 or 4 minutes, it's steady, then it goes up and then down, and then it continues that pattern. That's what it's supposed to do. For me, they put in the oxytocin, my contraction peaked and stayed at this peak level for 3.5 hours. So if you are watching this and had a baby and can mentally think about it as having your contraction at climax, one of your worst contractions at climax, for 3.5 hours without a relentless break, you would want to basically kill someone, is how you feel, because it is the most pain I have ever felt in my entire life. And it doesn't stop. Morphine didn't touch it. They tried morphine. They're like, oh, well, just take whatever gas that they can give you. That didn't even touch it. They took the oxytocin out. They stopped it within 5 minutes when they realized things went really, really wrong. What was done was done. It was done. And so, 1, allergic reaction. 2, a contraction that will not stop at climax. And 3, your body cannot relax, therefore you are not going to dilate. So with all these 3 things happening to me, in those 3.5 hours, I pity any pregnant woman that was in there in labor, because I have never screamed for so long in my entire life that after, when everything was done, I lost my voice. So I was screaming at the top of my lungs because the pain was so immense. Nothing could take the pain away. And I couldn't relax. There was no proper position. It was just basically chaos. And I could tell my husband, he was completely stressed. The doctor was stressed. The nurses that were on call were just completely stressed because I am screaming and there's nothing they can do. And of course I'm not dilating, and the baby needs to come, and yada, yada, yada. So my worst nightmare was an epidural. And in this case, there was no choice. It was either epidural or C-section, and I was not about to have a C-section. So I had to wait an hour. When we're in a small community, I had to wait an hour for this guy to come because he was on call. This was I don't know, middle of the day. Anyway, they didn't have him on at the hospital. I had to wait for him to come to put the epidural in, which once it was in, got the pain down to a normal birthing pain. Okay, and I can say that because I've had 4 other births, and I can compare the pain to what that epidural sort of numbed. So it numbed the pain back down to a normal childbirth, so it did not take the pain away. And so I could feel everything. I could feel the contractions. I can know when to push. It did not take any of that away. And so I think it was 4 hours later, something like that, I finally pushed and gave birth to my son. And my worst fear as a mom is I've been drugged with morphine. I've been drugged with everything else. Allergic reaction plus an epidural. I was scared that my baby was going to be born basically kind of drugged up and totally limp, because what goes in mom goes into baby. I don't care who says what, and what the doctors say that some medications don't travel through to the baby. The baby's connected to my bloodstream. What I take, the baby gets. And so I was really concerned about the baby. And anyway, Orion was born, and he was born healthy. He screamed right away, crying, and I was able to sit down, or lie down more like it, and hold him. Recovery of that birth was long. It took me over a month to totally recover. My back ached because of the epidural. The drugs that they gave me, my back was in utter pain. I tore badly on that one. Just the whole, to recoup as a first-time mom, trying to breastfeed and being in so much pain. It was just, for me, it was the worst birth, but it was the learning curve and the catalyst to the other 4 of mine, and why I changed the way I gave birth on my other 4 was because of this birth. And I didn't want to repeat this one ever again. And so I basically, after screaming at my husband and telling him I'll never have kids again, and I bit off his head, and I thank God that he don't take any pregnant woman in complete pain giving birth we don't mean what we say sometimes. We are just totally in pain and mad. And in this case, I was just furious. I did end up having more children after. So that is my first experience. And so after, I didn't want to get pregnant again. I didn't want to go through it all over again. I mean, it was just not something I even wanted to touch. But I got pregnant 3 months after I gave birth to Orion, and which I was in denial for about 6 months. I could not believe that I was pregnant again. But I had to come to grips with it. And so with Ocean, I wanted to do something different, but I didn't know where to go. I didn't know where to start. We didn't have the finances to hire a midwife. And so I can't remember who told me, but somebody told me about a doula that's been working in the community for about 25 years. And so she came to the house and she talked with us and learned a lot about us, and I learned a lot from her. And she basically, we decided then to do an unassisted home birth, but not with diving into some books, not with getting mentally prepared for it, not without, we were in town, so the hospital was only 5 minutes away. We were gonna do a home birth to keep things a lot more relaxed and keep me out of the hospital so I can just give birth comfortably in my own time without the rush of doctors in and out, in and out, in and out. And there was 2 books that she told me about. Now the first book, it's called Birthing from Within. Take a look there. And the second book is called Heart and Hands. Now this is actually a midwifery textbook. And so I literally read it all. I shared as much with my husband, things that could go wrong, what to do, what to look for, yada, yada, yada. I basically dived into these 2 books for the rest of my pregnancy to learn and ask questions and to completely prepare myself and scripturally prepare myself for the birth of our second child. Now, this scared my parents. It scared a lot of people who knew we were going to do a home birth, but I also talked to some people who actually did it. And it's not illegal where I live. So this isn't an illegal thing that I did. It's just not very popular among people. But with how I reacted with the oxytocin and this and that, for me, it was a personal decision that I made that I will never regret making. And it's not for everyone. But this is what I learned, and you can take some of the techniques right into the hospital with you. So after reading Heart and Hands, I realized that I was getting mentally equipped for this. And after reading Birthing from Within, I'm not a fond of 100% of this book. That is for sure. It's too new agey for me. There's a lot of non-Christian stuff in it. Basically, the first half of the book, I don't really care. To me, it's not relevant. There's a lot of history. I'm not crazy about the drawings in it. That's just my personal. But on the other hand, about this book, they have several amazing chapters on pain control during childbirth, and a lot of the techniques that I learned are from this book. So I would recommend just to buy this book for the 2 chapters that are in it about pain control. You can read about history and all that stuff. That's fine. But this book for me changed my life on how to control pain the most. Okay. But so I just want to make sure you guys know that I don't agree with a lot of stuff in here because it's new age, but there is some really, really important points that the author does bring out in this book. So I prepared myself and I read the chapters and getting myself ready for labor. And when you're getting yourself ready for labor, the biggest thing that I learned is how to control pain the natural way, because childbirth is natural. I mean, your body was designed, women's body was designed to handle the pain. What we have to practice is how to handle the pain, not get lost and lost in the pain and lose it. Basically, we need to have pain control. So the other 4 births, I took no medication. Everything was completely natural for the births. So let me go over some pain control techniques. Now, when you're in a contraction, you literally have to zone out everything and focus on that contraction, because the contraction will last about a minute, 2 minutes if it's really long, but a solid minute at your climax. So when you are in early labor, you might have a contraction every 10 minutes, and those are warm-up contractions is what I call. Those get you ready. So practice what you would do in a intense contraction on the first contractions. So a lot of times, if I'm at home or if I'm outside, if I go into a contraction, I'll grab something, a cupboard or chair or something, and I'll lean up against it, and I will practice just either leaning forward and getting myself into breathing and relaxing and letting the pain ripple through my body in a relaxed. And the biggest thing that this doula, she told me was, what do you do when you actually get hurt, when you're not in labor? So for example, I take a hammer, I'm putting in a nail, and I go whap, and I hit my thumb, and the pain is just throbbing. How do I react? Do I go beepty, 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 and I start yelling and skipping and hopping and throw my fists and throw the hammer across and just freak out? Do I just stand there and kind of go and breathe through the first intense amount of pain and keep my composure? Or do I squish up my face and go, oh my goodness, I got my thumb, and start hopping, and you're intense because you're squishing up, and you know all those lines on your face, basically you squish them all up and hold them. Do I do that? So there's different ways people react. And what I learned was I'm more the person that kind of holds it and go, oh dear. I usually don't say too much, but I'm in pain and my face says it. And so that's more me. Well, other people, you know, are the people that say whatever they want to say, throw the hammer, freak out, kick other things, and basically kind of do a big tantrum, sort of speaking, in an adult way. So which one are you? I don't care. But whichever the case is, they're both the wrong way to control pain. So if you hurt yourself, and this is what I really was taking in, it was every time I hurt myself, I practiced pain control for labor. So, and with Ocean, you know, if you stab your toe, if you hit yourself, if you, whatever the pain is, from small to big, you do the same thing. Excuse me, you get hit, start breathing. Watch your face. Make sure your face doesn't squish up and you get tense. Start breathing. Start letting the muscles just loosen. Start just relaxing yourself and feel the pain, but work through the pain so the throbbing goes down. Your face stays relaxed. You don't even need to say anything, but work on your breathing and your face muscles and your tenseness in that moment of pain. And let me tell you, it works. And I still do it when I hurt myself. And let me tell you, I've hurt myself pretty bad before. So I started using that technique to get myself mentally prepared, because the more you can prepare yourself on littler things, the better you're prepared for the bigger things. And so relax that facial muscle. Breathe. Think about something else for a moment. Put a prettier picture, a butterfly, anything in your brain that is beautiful and calming. Picture it and breathe through the pain instead of getting worked up. And so that practices on pain control. So with Ocean, with the early set of contractions, that's what I started doing. I started finding that comfortable place, whether it's on the counter, kind of leaning into the contraction. And your key to a contraction is leaning into it, opening your body up. Now, if you think about it, your hips are meant to give birth. But if you're always squished up, it's harder to give birth. You want to open up those hips so your body can get that baby through. And the more you work with the contraction, the faster the contractions will increase, the faster the labor will continue, and the faster the baby comes out, and then you're done. So that's my goal. The better I can work with the contraction, the faster the labor will come on, and the more intense the labor will come on, and the faster that baby is born, and I can get on with the rest of my life. That's what I'm thinking about when I am giving birth. And that is from standing up, and when I go into contraction, going into kind of like a squat on the floor. That is kind of working with my body. Gravity pulls down, and we want to work that way. So I'm holding onto the counter, I'm kind of going down and breathing. As the contractions get worse, I'm either hands and knees on the floor, kind of moving around. I usually moan and groan. My husband is basically, I say this is the only time in a marriage you can be the complete boss of your husband and boss him around, because in all honesty, hon, I need water now. Can you push on this section right now? No, don't touch me there. So the please and thank you kind of disappear, but my husband also understands that I am in complete pain. I am trying to control my pain, and if I want something, it's going to be asked as short, as quick as possible. And I try not to snap at my husband. I try to be calm. But if I am sounding a bit more snappy, my husband is completely okay with it, because I am literally just asking him as quick and short as possible. This is what I need. I need it now. And he just does it. And it's been really good for that understanding that I am not mad at him. I am not snapping at him. This is hard work for me, and he is my you get this, you get that, do this kind of thing. And it's really nice that he understands that. And all guys need to understand that, is that we are in intense pain that you will never ever know exactly how it feels like. It is beyond anything else. So when I am practicing the early stages, that's what I'm doing. I'm working with the contraction. Standing up for me is the most uncomfortable position. Let other women, it is the most comfortable position. So find a position that's comfortable. On your knees, squatting, working with the contraction, standing up. Some people like a ball to kind of roll on. Some people like to lean on their partner. Some people like to lay in bed. Find your place and your position. And work with your body. So every time that contraction comes, it literally ripples through your body. And you can feel it in your stomach, and you can feel it in your cervix, and you can feel it out down your legs. It's a whole body contraction, especially at climax. And you got to make sure, physically think, relax your face, relax yourself. Deep breath in, deep breath out. And I literally a lot of times picture a mountain, and I am climbing up to it. When I hit the peak of my contraction, I have hit the top, and now I'm going to slide downhill. And I'm sliding downhill because the contractions will go down, and I reach the bottom again. And every single time that I go through a climax contraction, I climb that hill a little more, but I stay there, or that mountain, and I get more and more and more. The other thing that I think about, that every contraction is closer to the end. So the more I put into that pain of that contraction, the closer I am to the finish line, and I am done. So I work really, really hard. A lot of hospitals say don't eat food, whatever else. If I know I am starting early labor, I will literally fry myself up eggs. I will literally eat something, eat a full sandwich. I will eat eggs. I will eat protein. I will eat dairy. Did you know that dairy actually helps you in the pain control? Food, that dairy products, it actually helps your body make the pain, natural pain medication in your body. So I will try to drink a glass of milk, if dairy at that same time. I will eat something, because let me tell you, the energy that you need for childbirth, the last thing you need to do is starve yourself and not eat anything, because I will have no energy to finish properly. And so what I do avoid is citrus. I will not eat citrus, because if I puke because of the pain, it's really, really stings coming up. If you have an orange, if you have something more citrus, a grapefruit, even tomatoes, I totally don't do anything tomatoes. So you want to do something that has a more alkaline pH, toast, anything like that. Just stay away from something really acidic, because if you end up throwing up because of the pain, I have never, but that doesn't mean many people don't. You don't want to throw up something acidic. And so I eat something, and during it, my husband brings me water. Sometimes my husband brings me more milk, something like that, to control the pain, to make sure that my blood glucose does not drop, that I stay healthy through the pain and delivery of our child. So with that being said, Oceans was at home. There was no midwife, there was no doula. It was myself, my husband, and our God with us. And we did a lot of praying, and we had early labor. It was about 8 to 9 hours. We started early in the morning. She was born about, I think, just sometime after lunch. And Orion went to my mom's for a couple of days, and I gave birth to her on hands and knees. I was not prepared for how large she was. She was a 9'4" baby, 9 pounds 4 ounces. She was a huge baby. I tore even on my hands and knees. There was a little scare, because my husband thought that when she came out, the umbilical cord was wrapped around her neck. My husband actually said, do not push. He wanted to get his fingers in between the umbilical cord and her neck. What he learned that day was critical, was never ever move the umbilical cord too much, because that umbilical cord is connected to the placenta, which is still attached to me inside. So if you jiggle that umbilical cord, you cause severe pain. And if my feet weren't, or my legs weren't as numb as they were, I probably would have kicked my husband in the face, because he hurt me quite badly. And he learned that day never to mess with the umbilical cord as much as he did. Get those fingers in between so they don't clamp down. And the baby was born healthy, cried right away, good color, gave birth to Ocean without any other issues. And so she was my first birth. And the next day we actually went to the hospital because I tore quite badly. I got some stitches and then went home. So all in all, that birth went a lot better. Again, 8 to 9 hours of labor on that one. Now, Nova was the third one, and we did another home birth. Nova was, I would say, my hardest home birth, because it was a lot of back labor. And this one, we actually called the midwife. Now, the midwife in town at that time knew that I was going to do home birth, so she was on call. Even though we could not afford her, she was nice enough to be on call for any questions or concerns. And that was with all four. So she was on call. And so we gave birth, or I was in labor with Nova for about 6 hours. And with her, the worst thing was that she was at night. And I am not a night owl. I don't do well at night. By the time 8 o'clock comes around, I am so done for the day. The last thing I want is to give birth to a child. And that day, I mean, I was in early labor with her for like 2 or 3 days in advance. So, I mean, how do you know which day is actually going to go? I had contractions every 10 minutes, then 20 minutes, then 30 minutes, then 15. And it was like back and forth, all over the map for like 2 or 3 days. And I just lived my life. And at that point, I was actually busy painting a greenhouse that my husband had made. And, and so I was painting away. And that afternoon, I could feel the contractions. But again, they were so back and forth, like nothing was coming together. And so I spent all day in the hot sun, off and on contractions, which I just kind of practiced breathing through. And I painted a huge greenhouse, 2 coats of paint on there. And then I snuggled the kids to bed, which we had to get back up because we had to take them. And I went into active labor. Again, same pain controls. Your face, your body, you work with those contractions. And my word, that was hard. One, I was exhausted from the day. I was tired. Two, she was positioned a little bit different, so it was pushing on my back. So the last hour, I literally thought I was going to die. The pain was so much more intense, and I could not find any position, and I was kind of losing it in the pain. I was trying to keep myself relaxed, but at the same time, like I thought I was going to die. Like, so my husband ended up phoning the midwife, and she said, you know what? It was like, I don't know, 12 o'clock or 12:30 at night, something like that. And she said, you know what? I'm just going to come right over and see. So, I mean, she was in town, so she came over. And I don't know how long. I mean, for me, a minute feels like 1,000 years. So I don't know how fast she got there. It's kind of a blur for me. But what I do know is that when she did come, I was basically pushing the baby out. I was kind of propped up against the couch, and I was kind of on my hands, on my knees, kind of on a squat, pushing her out. And what my husband realized, and what I didn't realize this because I am totally zoned out to anything that is going on besides trying to make sure that this baby comes out, and it's painful, and I'm trying to work at the contractions, trying to keep myself together as I'm already falling apart. And she showed my husband that when the baby was coming out on my back, the baby was actually pushing against my spine, and he could see the whole baby pushing and pushing down into my back and out. Like he said it was unbelievable. Like, that's the pain, because it was pushing so much on my spinal cord that I thought my back was going to explode. Like, I thought I was just going to go poosh with the pain, and that's why I thought I was going to die, because of how this baby was coming out. She stayed. Nova was born about 1:30 in the morning, and that is probably the most exhausting pictures that I have. I was white as a ghost. I basically gave birth to her, and I fell on the floor. I just went birth and fell. I was totally done. She looked at the placenta, taught my husband a whole bunch of stuff that night. And looked at the baby, and I held the baby. The baby was absolutely healthy. Got things cleaned up. Everything else is very vague, as I was just so beyond any exhaustion I've ever felt. She kind of wrapped me up with a blanket to keep me warm, and basically she made a cup of tea, got myself some fluids. I started feeding Nova, and then she left. And so what I didn't realize, that this is how big of a deal when somebody goes beyond their call of duty. She, for one, didn't have to come. I couldn't afford her, period. Second, I did not know that morning. So she spent all night with me. That morning, she got on a plane all the way to Mexico for a vacation with her family. not she did not mention it. And the only reason why I know that, because I tried to call her to thank her and she didn't answer, and I got her a few weeks after and I thanked her, and I found out that that morning she got on a plane and went on a holiday. And I want to just really, really thank her, and I'm not going to mention her name, but it was just unbelievable what she did. She was completely peaceful. She went way beyond what she was called for. She helped. She never, ever, ever mentioned to hurry up, this and that. She was as calm as ever, and it was unbelievable. And I want to just really, really thank her. And my husband also learned a lot. I learned a lot, and I also prayed that I would never have a baby push on my spine ever again. But in all honesty, I did the best that I could, and she was born. So I didn't tear that bad with her. She was an 8-pound baby, and I actually learned something about stitches, and I actually learned on a 1st degree and a 2nd degree tear, I can get away with tea tree oil mixed with water and just spray myself down there every single time I go to the washroom, and it actually heals better because I reacted to ocean stitches. I had severe infection because of them. They weren't dissolving, and everything's really sensitive down there, and the worst thing that can happen is to give birth, have a reaction, and then get an infection when you're trying to heal from all the trauma. So I learned from her that if I just take care of myself with some tea tree and water, things heal up themselves. Now, it's a difference if it's really inside, tissue is teared, and it really needs to be connected together. But I had about a 2nd degree rip, and I did that, and you know what? I healed up perfectly fine. I healed up within a week instead of a month, and I was really thankful for that. So I took her advice with that. So what are we on? Nova. So number 4 birth was Grace. And Grace, we did something different. We actually did a pool. So we got a big kid pool with thick sides. Like, I'm talking thick sides. They're like 6 or 7 inches thick. A big blow up pool. We set, and then we put those foam mats down. You know what you see at Home Depot for like kids playroom or something? They're like a 1/2 inch to an inch thick, and we put that underneath, so when I sat on the pool, it would be nice and cushiony. So Grace, I did something a little different, and there's one technique in here that I did with Grace. Grace was I went to early labor in the morning, and I figured, you know what? I'm in early labor. And the best thing is to keep your mind off of things when you're early labor. Okay, I have my contraction. Now 10 minutes later, it should happen again. But in that 10 minutes labor, what are you going to do? Well, I decided to make a chocolate cake. So I went into the kitchen while my husband was filling up the pool, and I started making a cake. So every 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, I went into contraction. And I just kind of took me like an hour to get this cake mix made. Put it in the oven, got it cooking. But when it was cooking, I kind of went into active labor. I got my husband to take it out when the timer went and check it. But it kept my mind doing something. And that was a awesome morning, an awesome labor morning, because I looked forward to eating chocolate cake. Now, let me tell you, who doesn't want chocolate cake after all what you've been through? Okay, so I was thinking, after this, I am going to have a big slice of chocolate cake. And so I was in kind of early active labor. Anyway, the beeper went, and I'm like, you know what? Let's cool off this cake. And I told my husband that I would really, really like a chocolate icing on top. And so somewhere in between that, after the cake cooled, I whipped up a chocolate icing right in active labor. After the icing was on, I went into the pool. My husband kept it warm. He always had a stock pot on with hot, hot, hot water just to keep the temperature of the water going. And I gave birth to Grace in the water, which definitely helped with my vein condition because you're always lighter in water. So I gave birth to her. Again, I kind of leaned over the edge of the bathtub, kind of leaned over, and I kind of always like this squat position to give birth. And I gave birth in water. My husband said that was the scariest thing because mentally you see this baby's head called crowning. When you crown, the baby's head is coming or is out, but the rest of the baby is not. Anyway, the baby has crowned, the head's out, and the first reaction for my husband is, oh my goodness, this baby's head is out, it's underwater, it's going to drown. But it hasn't breathed yet. So the baby's born. He kind of moved my legs. The umbilical cord was a little bit messed up around me. Brought it out. He said, in that less than 5 minutes from the baby's head coming and stuff being underwater, it's this mental, basically back and forth. Oh my goodness, the baby's drowning. No, the baby's not drowning. Yes, it is drowning. No, it's not. He had to keep himself composed because all he wanted to do is pull up the baby. But it wasn't, you just don't do that because the baby's still half inside of me. And so once the baby was born, I pulled the baby up. Grace screamed and cried. I was less exhausted. He helped me out of the pool, got dried up. Placenta was born about 10 minutes later, and we just kind of cleaned things up. And again, a slight tear, but not very much. Beautiful labor and delivery. It was absolutely awesome. The fifth, Annika, and she again, very much so like Grace, but a couple things quite different. One, less than 3 hours. So with Annika, I was in early labor for 6 weeks. Oh my word. Every day for 6 weeks, every 20 minutes, every 15 minutes, then 10 minutes, then 30 minutes, I went into a contraction for 6 weeks. And it drove me insane because I told my husband, we were still living in town, and then I said, I am not going to stop life. I am going to go around and go for my hour walk a day with the other 4 children. We're going to enjoy ourselves. I said the worst case is it's a busy park. There's always people to come and help if I go into labor. But I cannot just stop my life waiting for this baby. And so I just continued gardening. I continued working, and that when I say working, just being at home doing my stuff, went out for long walks, always had the cell phone with me. And if I didn't have the cell, there's enough people, there's enough residents to get help if I needed it. And, I was just praying. I honestly prayed and prayed and prayed. I'm like, Lord, if I am in early labor 6 weeks in advance, please work on my cervix, that I literally, when I go into labor and it's now and the baby's born. That there is no early labor. There's like, you are now in active labor and that baby's going to be born because you are already like 6 centimeters dilated. And that's exactly what happened. I woke up, it was like 4:30, 5:30 in the morning, and I looked over my husband and I said, this is it. And I had extra pancakes in the fridge that day. And so I said, we need to get breakfast and we need to do it now. So I just grabbed a cold pancake. I think I put like peanut butter, almond butter, some kind of protein. Like I was thinking of protein, something that lasts, that works on my body. And I just put it over. I had eggs on top. I know that probably just sounds absolutely disgusting, but in my mind frame, I was looking at protein. I didn't care. I looked at something to stuff my face, get it in my belly, drink plenty of water, and get ready because the contractions were coming. And they were coming fast. And by the time I was done eating that pancake, I was in active labor. It was just enough time. I don't even think my husband ate. I can't remember. It's kind of a blur. But he was already filling up the water as I was stuffing my face full of food in the morning because I didn't want to do this on an empty stomach. I wanted the energy to put into her labor. And I could say her now because now I know it's a girl. We never ever find out, by the way, what the gender is until it's born. But I went into the pool. It was complete active labor, put everything I had into every single contraction using the pain control in here and what I have mentioned before. And the biggest difference with her was that she kicked me all the way out. So what am I saying here? Okay, when you're pushing, you crown, the baby crowns. Actually, you have what they call a ring of fire. And I'm not joking when they say a ring of fire. Like, it literally feels like when you open, when your body opens itself up for that head to come out, it burns like fire. And for me, when that happens, my water breaks. So my water breaks always at the end. It never ever has so far broken anywhere in active labor or at the beginning. It breaks literally less than 5 minutes before the baby's born. So literally what happens is water breaks, ring of fire, that baby's crowning, everything's opening up as big as it can. It hurts. I'm in complete pain. I am trying to control my breathing. I am usually gripping something, holding something, the sides of the pool. Sometimes I even put a belt in my mouth to clench on, just to keep, so I rather clench and keep my rest of my face calm. Anything, my husband says I scream a lot, but it's all releasing. It's not tensing. So if I scream, that's actually releasing something that I can't utterly have control of, but I'm not tightening myself up. I need to release some of that pain, and in that case, it's a scream. And so with her, the most pain came from her. Now, I knew she was well alive because as she was crowning, she was kicking all the way out. So I could feel her kick inside my birthing canal. I could feel like the whole body coming out. I could feel her feet or her hands or whichever part, but I could feel the kicking, and my word, that was unbelievably painful. It was so easier with the other ones, just they slip out and they're out, but she was bam, 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 bam all the way. So that was where the most pain came from on that one. And I remember, and I kind of laugh now, and I'm very thankful I didn't pop the kid pool because the pain was so intense. I had no scream left. There's nothing I could do. I actually bit the pool. Like, I actually, like, the sides, I was so much that I bit it. And I can't believe that I didn't pop it, but I didn't. And she was born healthy, happy, crying, latched on really well, a very minimal tear, and I went on. So those are my birth stories and the highlights that I can tell you. And I also want to say thank you to my God that He is the rock of our relationship. And without Him through all these births, I wouldn't be doing a home birth. I also want to say thank you to my husband because he was there every step of the way. He was just absolutely phenomenal. And the key thing is my husband was absolutely 110% calm in every single birth situation. Even with Nova, when I was freaking out, thought I was going to die, he remained calm. And keeping his mind focused on what was happening and thinking clearly, because let me tell you, I was not thinking clearly and I needed him to think clearly for me. And I really want to thank my husband for that, and I thank my parents for all the support with every single birth, even though it freaked them out. Now, the birth that's coming up, I said I was 26 weeks pregnant, and my life has changed quite considerably in the 5 years from Annika to this pregnancy. So there's a 5-year gap, while all the rest is like a year to 14 to 18 months gap. So in the 5 years, we have started Kitty's Home Away from Home, which is cat boarding. So we got clients in, out, in, out, in, out. That's huge. We are on call all the time. We have, clients coming, hey, can I come in an hour to drop off? Something has happened. And we now have a farm. We moved out onto an acreage 2 years ago. We have a milk cow. We got ducks and geese and goats, and we're going to have sheep here at the end of August, the month before I give birth. My milk cow is going to give birth actually a month before I give birth. There's a lot of things happening, and this time around, I actually have a doctor in town, and I'm not in town this time. I am about 45 minutes out from the nearest hospital, and before I was only 5 minutes. So a lot of things has changed, and so we are going to do a hospital birth to separate myself from the farm, from the cat clients, from life on the farm to giving birth. Now, I went on Facebook, and this is where social media can come in handy. Was I posted on our city page, who is a doctor that will actually let you birth in any position, who will actually, not in theory, but who will actually come through and say, yes, you can give birth standing up. Yes, you can give birth squatting. Yes, you can give birth yada, yada, yada. Anyway, and people are pretty honest on Facebook when you're asking their opinion. They really don't hold back. And it was a huge discussion. So I ended up going with a doctor that is very open-minded. She's actually from Czechoslovakia, and she's an awesome doctor and really works, because there's a lot of tests that I don't want done. There's a lot of things that I refuse to do, but there's a lot of things that I will do. But I am very natural, and I don't do at least half the tests that most people do. And she is working with me, and I am trying to work as much with her, but also not compromising my beliefs and who I am. So I'm going to try to make it to the hospital. Now, in my head, I'm going, okay, depends on if I have early labor like Annika's for like 6 weeks or even 4 weeks, and I go and I start having the contractions, I know when I am at the house and I start, I have less than a few hours to get there. So that means getting ready, getting my kids ready, phoning my parents to come and take care of Kitty's home away from home, taking care of the farm, that kind of on transit all the way here. I do not have much time to get to the hospital. So I am actually going to prepare myself for birth on transit if it is going to happen. So with the experience in my head, we're going to make sure that there is a bag packed for an emergency delivery on transit to hospital. And I'm hoping that that won't be the case, but I'm also not going to be naive and say it will never happen. This is my 6th child. Things can move way quicker than I am prepared for. The other thing is every birth is different, so you need to get yourself prepared for anything, and that's what we're doing. So I'm hoping I'll make it to the hospital basically like 20 minutes before the baby's born, give birth, everything goes fine, and they kick me out of the hospital that night or the next morning, and I get back to normal life. So that is the plan at the moment. And we're just praying that everything so far looks awesome. The baby is healthy, happy, everything's developing great, and there's no issue. And I just keep praying that that will stay the same, that we have a quick, simple delivery, and on with my life after that. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for watching, and comment, ask questions. I would love to hear from you, and I will see you on the next video.